The roar of the engines faded into a low hum as Flight 762 leveled off above the clouds, cruising eastbound toward New York. The air was cool and dry inside the cabin, and the scent of recycled air mixed with hints of coffee and cologne. In seat 14A, a boy named Elijah Turner stared out the window, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and nervous energy. At just 12 years old, it was his first time flying alone, dressed in a clean button-down shirt, navy blue khakis, and sneakers with Velcro straps. Elijah carried with him the excitement of a dream fulfilled. His mother, a cashier who had worked extra shifts for months, had saved up so he could visit his Uncle Raymond, a professor at a university in Manhattan. She had packed his backpack the night before, slipping in his sketchpad, snacks, and a small note that simply said, "I'm proud of you." The first-class cabin felt like another world to Elijah. The leather seats, polished armrests, and neatly dressed passengers all shimmered with a kind of elegance he had only seen on television. Most of the people around him were buried in laptops or newspapers, barely giving him a glance. Except one. Seated beside him in 14B was a tall man in his early 50s with sharp features, graying hair combed meticulously, and a bespoke navy suit that matched his tie. His name was Douglas Vance, a corporate executive known more for his wealth than his warmth. He had entered the cabin with the kind of confidence that came from years of privilege, carrying a slim briefcase and an attitude that suggested the world belonged to him. From the moment he sat down, Douglas made it clear he was unhappy. He shifted in his seat dramatically, let out a series of exaggerated sighs, and gave Elijah a long, scrutinizing look. The boy offered a small smile, unsure of what to say, but Douglas only responded with a dismissive shake of the head. As the plane climbed higher, the tension beside Elijah grew thicker. Douglas pushed his briefcase between them, encroaching on Elijah's space without a word. The boy instinctively leaned toward the window, gripping the armrest tightly. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "Be polite. Stay quiet. Don't draw attention." The silence was broken only when the flight attendant, Marcus Hill, approached with the beverage cart. Marcus, in his late 30s, had a calm, composed demeanor and a deep sense of duty. His uniform was spotless, and he moved with practiced grace. He had noticed the odd pairing in row 14 during boarding the nervous boy and the scowling businessman. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," Marcus said, his voice warm. "Can I get you something to drink?" Elijah looked up shyly. "Apple juice, please." Marcus smiled. "You got it." Douglas didn't answer. He merely gestured for coffee, his eyes never leaving the screen of his tablet. Marcus served the drinks, but as he turned to continue down the aisle, Douglas muttered under his breath, "First class isn't what it used to be." Elijah didn't react. He kept his eyes on his juice, his hands trembling slightly. Marcus heard the comment, and though he didn't stop, he made a mental note. He'd seen that type of behavior before. The flight continued smoothly for the next half hour. Elijah opened his sketchpad and began to draw. He loved airplanes, and the view from the window inspired a sketch of the clouds as ocean waves. With a jet soaring just above them, his pencil moved quickly, the lines forming shapes that helped block out the tension beside him. Then it happened. With a slight shift of his elbow, Douglas tilted his coffee cup slowly, deliberately sending a cascade of hot liquid into Elijah's lap. The boy gasped, jumping slightly as the heat soaked into his pants. The sketchpad tumbled to the floor. "Oh," Douglas said dryly. "Clumsy me." Elijah's eyes welled with tears. The pain stung, but the humiliation burned deeper. The coffee soaked through his clothes, dripping onto the seat. Marcus, who had been checking the cabin's rear, rushed forward. "What happened?" he asked sharply. "Could knock my arm," Douglas said, feigning irritation. "You didn't," Elijah said quietly. "I didn't move." Marcus crouched beside him, inspecting the boy's soaked pants and trembling hands. "Come with me, Elijah," he said gently. He helped the boy to his feet and led him toward the galley. Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Some passengers looked up from their devices, their eyes following the scene. Marcus retrieved a towel and a pair of spare pants from the emergency kit. He handed them to Elijah and said, "You're okay. You did nothing wrong." In the galley, Elijah changed quietly. Marcus stepped aside to give him privacy but kept an eye on Douglas, who remained in his seat, tapping his tablet like nothing had happened. As Elijah emerged, Marcus crouched to meet his eye. "You're stronger than you know," he said. Elijah nodded slowly. Back in the main cabin, a woman in row 12 turned to Marcus. "That man spilled it on purpose. I saw him. He did it deliberately." Another voice joined in from row 16. "He was glaring at the kid from the moment they boarded." The testimonies came like a wave, one after another. A retired teacher, a software engineer, a college student. Marcus knew what he had to do. He tapped his earpiece and called the head purser. "We have a situation. I need a background check on Douglas Vance." The response was swift. Within minutes, a message came through. Vance had been flagged before for aggressive behavior toward crew and passengers. He had slipped through the system this time, but not anymore. Marcus walked down the aisle and stopped beside Douglas's seat. "Mr. Vance, we need to have a conversation." Douglas smirked. "About what?" "About your conduct, and the fact that you're on a no-fly list." The smirk faded. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. You're being investigated for multiple incidents like this. I've contacted ground security. Authorities will be waiting at the gate." Douglas's face turned a mottled red. He straightened his tie, trying to appear unfazed, but the tremble in his hands betrayed him. "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to," Marcus replied. The passengers already did. The cabin had gone quiet. All eyes were on row 14. Elijah, now back in his seat, watched in silence. His sketch pad sat on his tray table, the drawing smudged but intact. He picked up his pencil and began again. A new drawing, this one of a bird, flying high. The plane touched down 40 minutes later. As it rolled toward the gate, the captain came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We have a situation requiring law enforcement. We thank you for your cooperation." Two uniformed officers boarded the plane minutes later. "Douglas Vance?" one of them said. Douglas didn't resist. He stood, adjusted his jacket, and walked down the aisle like a man in a dream. The cameras were already rolling. Passengers had recorded everything. There was no hiding from the truth. As the officers led him away, Elijah looked up at Marcus. "Why did he hate me?" Marcus placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "He didn't hate you. He hated what you represent. Bravery, potential, and a world that's changing." The boy nodded. He didn't understand it all, but he understood enough. Later, as passengers disembarked, several stopped to thank Marcus. Some offered their own stories. Others just nodded. Elijah waited until the very end, before he stepped off the plane. He handed Marcus his drawing. It was of a man with wings standing in front of a boy, shielding him from fire. "It's you," Elijah said. Marcus took the picture, his throat tight. "Thank you, Elijah." The boy smiled, his dignity intact. The scars would fade, but the strength would remain. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters buzzed. But Elijah walked through them like he belonged. Because he did. And Marcus quiet, strong, unshakable, returned to the gate, ready for the next flight, the next passenger, the next chance to do what was right.